a Hindu temple in Ahmedabad in the Indian state of Gujarat, where I've come to find out how this most ancient of religions operates in a rapidly changing world. But I know it's going to be easy. Hinduism must surely be the most complex and multidimensional of all the great faiths. I'm rubbing shoulders with the people who have come here to celebrate the birthday of Swaminarayan, just one of the many, many Hindu gods. So many, in fact, that nobody can put a number to them. For me, this is the India experience, total immersion.
I've only been here 20 minutes, I'm beginning to feel exhausted already, this full body contact. There's a wonderful atmosphere of celebration and joy. It's a very happy place to be. There can be no religion that displays more colour and diversity and vitality than Hinduism. After 4,000 or so years of inventiveness and adaptation to changing circumstances, it's given us today a faith of more than 1 billion followers, most in India, with tens of millions of them spread around the world.
Every time I come to India, I seem to be swept off my feet by the power and passion of what I experience here. It's not easy to make sense of precisely what is happening and why. So for now, I just go with the flow. Today, Swaminarayan's devotees have dressed the most lifelike statue of the deity like a prince. The god sits on his altar surrounded by birthday party food, which is shared with his guests. Apparently, Swaminarayan came to Earth in human form just a couple of centuries ago. During his 50 or so years as a man, he declared to his followers that he was, in truth, God, the last and greatest of all the Hindu gods. The Swaminarayan movement has about 5 million followers, a minute proportion of the close to 1 billion Hindus. Yet this relatively small sect has an influence and global reach out of all proportion to its size. It has built temples and monuments on 4 continents. The biggest and most impressive is on the floodplain of the river Yamuna in the Indian capital, Delhi. But there are hundreds of others, as far apart as Chicago, Nairobi, Sydney, and even the modest London suburb of Neasden. Although this part of North London has a pretty rich mix of humanity, it still feels a very long way from the heat and dust of Ahmedabad. The Swaminarayan temple stands aloof in its neighbourhood, like a palace from an oriental fantasy.
Since its opening some 10 years ago, this temple complex in North London has become one of the sights to see in Britain's most visited city. The Neasden Temple is very definitely on the map. British Prime Minister Tony Blair dropped by recently, one of the many celebrities who'd come to be impressed by the 5,000 tons of Carrara marble and Bulgarian limestone, which was hand-carved by 1,500 craftsmen. The Swaminarayan movement may not be large, but it's certainly building up an extraordinary international profile.
The branch of the sect that built the Neasden Temple, and the part of the movement that is making by far the biggest global impact, is known by its initials, BAPS. It has about 1 million members in 45 countries. The Delhi Akshardham, the heavenly place, is the most staggering of BAPS's big architectural statements. It is said to have cost some $50 million and used the labour of 7,000 craftsmen and 4,000 volunteers. The opening ceremony in 2005, recorded on this BAPS memorial video, was the kind of event that makes the Oscars night look understated. Among the galaxy of stars and VIPs who attended were the President and Prime Minister of India. They were entertained by a cast of thousands. The BAPS approach is a fascinating fusion the deepest traditions and the most dazzling methods of modern communication. But all this enterprise does throw up some provoking questions.
How does such a comparatively small religious movement get to develop such a strong world presence? And to develop such high-level skills of self-presentation? Where does the money come from for all this communication, let alone the money to build $50 million temples and support ambitious programs of education, welfare and emergency relief? And why do some people find its intimate relationship with politicians and power brokers so alarming?
Before I can answer these questions, I need to go back to the beginning. The first thing I was struck by is the dramatic contrast between all the high-octane spectacular of the BAPS presentation and the tranquility of the Gujarat countryside, where the young Swaminarayan planted the seeds of his global movement.
Swaminarayan first arrived in Gujarat, not in the city of Ahmedabad, but in the poor remote villages to the south. According to the stories that grew up about him, Swaminarayan first left his native state, the distant Uttar Pradesh, as an 11-year-old orphan. He was starting out on a pilgrimage that would take him the length and breadth of India, from the Himalayas in the north to the oceans in the south.
Swaminarayan's first followers were the poor and despised, tenant farmers and land workers at the bottom of the Hindu caste system. The essence of his message to them, inspired by the ancient Vedic scriptures, was to live an ordered moral life. Do not kill, do not commit adultery, do not eat meat, do not consume alcohol or drugs.